The flames raged, instantly engulfing the forest ahead. A gust of wind swept by, and the scorching heat struck their faces, the raging fire like oil poured on, exploding into a massive cloud of grey smoke. Jiraiya stood on a branch, wiping the corner of his mouth with one hand, spitting out the lingering smoke. The screams were incessant, ninjutsu, kunai, and shuriken flew everywhere. This battlefield was in utter chaos. Jiraiya, we need to retreat. The enemy has already broken through. A figure appeared in an instant on a nearby branch, shouting at him. Jiraiya, weary from battle, glanced back and saw that their side was already in a state of collapse, with a continuous stream of enemies pouring in from the dense forest ahead. The disparity in troop numbers was too great, they simply couldn't withstand the enemy's frontal assault. What was initially a stalemate between Konoha and Iwagakure had taken a sharp turn for the worse with the addition of Kumogakure and Sunagakure. If we retreat, the enemy will get in, Jiraiya frowned. Allowing the Iwagakure ninja to enter the Land of Fire would have unimaginable consequences. We can't hold them back anymore. If we don't retreat, we'll be annihilated, Sarutabi Rigi said anxiously. At times like these, it was crucial to preserve their forces, otherwise, they wouldn't even have a chance to recover. The forest was vast. Jiraiya scanned the horizon and saw that his field of vision was filled with countless Iwagakure ninja. He didn't know how many more were hidden from sight. Jiraiya's expression turned grim. His fingers shifted, and a giant fireball shot out, distorting the air with its heat. However, this time it was blocked by a wall of rock that instantly rose in front of it. Boom! A larger explosion, with debris and dust falling from the sky, making it difficult to look up. Along with them, enemy figures hidden within also fell. Jiraiya took a deep breath and could only say, Rigi, you organize the retreat. I'll cover you. The defeat was like a surging tide. Countless figures flashed past Jiraiya's eyes, gradually becoming blurred. Even the surrounding sounds faded away, an indescribable feeling spreading through his heart, a mixture of sadness, anger, and unwillingness. His heart hardened further. Facing the flying rocks and enemies that covered the sky like dark clouds, he advanced instead of retreating, charging in. But in the next instant, a dazzling white light flashed past his head. Jiraiya was momentarily stunned and looked back sharply, only to see a patch of pure white light expanding madly. Boom! The sound of the explosion suddenly became clear, but it caused countless screams to abruptly stop. A figure stood above the Iwagakure ninja, indifferently watching the Konoha ninja below. Minato had just returned to the camp after a reconnaissance mission in the land of rice fields, only to see Shikaku and the others with grave expressions. His heart sank immediately, and he asked, "What's wrong?" Shikaku said with a grim face, "The northwestern defense line has been breached." Inoichi himself led the army. "More than half of our deployed forces there have been lost, and Jiraiya-sama was severely injured while covering the troops' retreat." Minato's heart clenched upon hearing this. So soon? Shikaku frowned and said, "There must have been communication between the three sides." Inoichi probably guessed that we would divide our forces. What was even more troublesome was that the Iwagakure ninja had now entered the Land of Fire, making them, Fugaku, and even the village no longer safe. With a 3- to 4-fold disparity in troop numbers, they had become so vulnerable. Shikaku suddenly thought of the Battle of Mount Kikyō in his future memories. Due to the betrayal of Hinata Shin and Orochimaru, Konoha's remaining forces were reduced to just over 1,000, while Kumogakure had sent over 7,000 ninja at that time. How to break this deadlock? Could he go and ask that Hinata Shin? "What do we do next?" Minato asked at this moment. "I'm thinking." Shikaku frowned, staring at the map, lost in thought. If they continued to stay here to resist the Kumogakure ninja, the Iwagakure ninja would be unstoppable within the Land of Fire. If they approached Konoha, it would be all over. If they consolidated their defenses and gathered all their forces, Konoha could still muster a not weak force, but that would mean letting the Kumogakure and Sunagakure ninja in as well, still facing an enemy from 3 sides. The total number of enemies was likely 30,000. Moreover, doing so would turn the Land of Fire into a battlefield, which the daimyo would certainly not agree to. It wasn't that Shikaku had made a wrong decision earlier, the situation was inherently unfavorable to them. For the ninja to protect the country, they could only extend the front lines. Just then, a Konoha ninja appeared in an instant, handing over a letter. This is from the southwest camp. It was from Fugaku. Minato and Shikaku exchanged glances. Finally, Minato reached out and took it, reading it. A moment later, his gaze deepened. Fugaku has chosen to withdraw Shikaku's side. He made the decision first. We can only retreat. We must immediately send a message to the Hokage. Uchiha Fugaku's decision was not wrong. Shikaku felt that even without this letter, he would have done the same thing soon. Minato clenched the letter in his hand, then weakly loosened it. He himself was very strong, but far from being able to control the outcome of this war. The future was like this, and the present was also like this. Shin received the news that they were to retreat. They had only been stationed here for 2 days, and now they had to abandon this camp, or rather, abandon the entire northeastern defense line. He immediately guessed that after Konoha divided its forces, either Jiraiya or Uchiha Fugaku's side could not withstand the enemy's offensive, causing a breach in the Land of Fire. He, Kakashi, and Rin gathered. When retreating, they only took some ninja tools and medicine, leaving behind tents and the like. Rin was a little worried. Why are we suddenly retreating again? Kakashi said, just follow the arrangements. Teacher Minato and the others will have a way. As he spoke, he glanced at Shin beside him. Seeing that he was silent, he didn't say anything more. Kakashi inwardly wanted to ask if Shin had any way to resolve the current predicament of Konoha. Fortunately, someone came to ask for him. Before the troops moved out, Minato took the initiative to find Shin and informed him of the current situation. Lord Jiraiya has already. Shin's face was filled with sorrow, then he asked, what should we do next? Minato looked at his expression and pondered. I wanted to ask you if you have any good ideas, Shin said bitterly. Lord Minato thinks too highly of me. I'm just a chunin, Minato couldn't help but say. This already concerns the survival of the village. Shin looked up at him and replied resolutely, Lord Minato, I am prepared to die in battle. Minato eventually left helplessly. The Konoha ninja force of 3,000 began to return towards Konoha village. On the way back with the team, Shin suddenly heard Rin's voice. Do you really have no way? The girl's face was full of worry, saying words that, in Shin's opinion, were naive yet piercing. Just trust Lord Minato, Shin replied. Please follow, and more. Kikyō Mountain is a natural barrier for Konoha facing the north. In the future, Konoha will resist the Cloud Ninja here and successfully defeat them. Now, Minato and Shikaku have also arrived here and rendezvoused with the troops led by Fugaku Uchiha. Jiraiya has been sent back to the village due to severe injuries, and the third Hokage has personally come to the front lines. That night, an envoy from the feudal lord's mansion arrived, bringing the feudal lord's condemnation and questioning. How could you allow Iwagakure shinobi to enter the borders of my land of fire? Hiruzen Tsurutabi responded coldly, not just Iwagakure shinobi, Cloud Ninja and Sand Ninja should have entered by now as well. The envoy's eyes widened upon hearing this, and he was momentarily speechless. After a while, the envoy finally spoke with difficulty. Third Hokage, have you surrendered? Hiruzen Tsurutabi replied, no, we will fight a decisive battle with the enemy here. The envoy gazed blankly at the mountain scenery outside, murmuring, Kikyō Mountain. Just like in the future. He swallowed and asked again, you will win, right? Please report to the feudal lord that Konoha will fight until the last moment. After the envoy sent by the feudal lord left, all of Konoha's high command gathered to discuss the next course of action. Abandoning the border defense line meant their vision was greatly reduced. The enemy's movements within the Land of Fire were extremely difficult to track. Kikyō Mountain could only defend against enemies from the north, and the Sand Ninja would not possibly go around to the north of Kikyō Mountain to fight them. If, during the decisive battle, a situation arose where one side fell first, as had happened before, their final defense line would completely collapse. Deep night. As the higher-ups were engaged in a lengthy discussion all night, another envoy was sent from the feudal lord's mansion. Third Hokage, the feudal lord orders you to immediately execute Shin Hyuga. The minister's voice was somewhat sharp. Hiruzen Tsurutabe responded coldly, "In this situation, do you think killing one person will make the enemy retreat? This is the feudal lord's order, third Hokage. Does your Konoha dare to defy it?" What needed to be said was said that day. Konoha will never sacrifice its comrades for peace. Killing Shin Hyuga. What use would it be to kill Shin Hyuga now? Facing the feudal lord's reckless and unreasonable demand, Hiruzen Tsurutabe was extremely impatient. But after dismissing the envoy, he looked at the map and couldn't help but fall into a daze. When had Konoha ever reached such a point? How had Konoha reached such a point? The moonlight was bright, casting its glow on Kikyō Mountain, and countless people were sleepless through the night. The next morning, Konoha suddenly received a letter from the Tsuchikage. Hiruzen Tsurutabe opened it and found it was a letter of surrender, his expression growing even colder. Shikaku said after reading it, "They are convinced we will lose. Now, the Land of Fire has more than just their Iwagakure shinobi. This is to avoid disputes with the Cloud Ninja and Sand Ninja after their victory." The others were filled with righteous indignation. All necessary defenses had been made, and all reconnaissance ninjas had been dispatched. Many letters were sent out to seek allies, but no reply was received. At this point, Hiruzen Tsurutabe didn't know what other methods he had to turn the tide. Who was the culprit behind all this? Could it be Shin Hyuga? Hiruzen Tsurutabe felt he was not yet so senile and incompetent. "Minato, come with me for a moment." The two of them walked out of the main tent, away from the crowd. Shikaku watched them from afar as they discussed something, with the third Hokage speaking more and Minato remaining mostly silent. After a short while, Hiruzen Tsurutabe returned. Minato, however, turned and went in another direction. "Hokage-sama," Shikaku couldn't help but speak. Hiruzen Tsurutabe was silent for a while before saying, "Now, saving the village is the most important thing." Shikaku was speechless. "Shikaku, send a message to the village, tell Kushina to come to the front lines." Shikaku was stunned, his thoughts racing. Kushina was the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, but she couldn't control her power freely like the Eight-Tails. If she released the Nine-Tails on the battlefield, it would only be a greater disaster for Konoha. "All right. Wait a moment." Shikaku had just turned around when Hiruzen Tsurutabe called him back. The old man hesitated for a long time before saying, "Also, have Tsunade bring Orochimaru to the front lines," and Danzo. At this point, Shikaku had no strong reaction. He didn't ask why but simply nodded in silence. Could it be that they were truly at their wits' end? This time was different from the future, where they had an insider betraying them, yet they still reached this point. Meanwhile, Minato walked into a temporary tent and found Hinata Shin fast asleep. Kakashi immediately woke up and, upon seeing his teacher, exclaimed, "Minato-sensei." Minato silently looked at the person lying on the ground. Kakashi realized something and quickly went to wake the person up. Shin turned slowly, rubbing his eyes and yawning. "Minato-sama?" he asked, looking at the person who had appeared in the tent, his tone surprised. He immediately got up and inquired, "Is there a mission?" Minato sighed, turned, and lowered the tent flap. There were only the three of them inside. "Shin, Konoha's current situation is very dangerous." Kakashi, standing nearby, was stunned. He looked at Minato-sensei, who had his back to them, and then at Shin. "Is the teacher here to ask Hinata Shin for help?" Shin was also silent for a moment. "I'm sorry, Minato-sama. It's all my fault. If it weren't for me, Konoha wouldn't have become like this." Minato turned around, looking at the young man with a complex expression. "Shin, do you resent Konoha?" Shin quickly shook his head. "No." Minato sighed, "I know. You didn't do those things, but we still considered you a threat to Konoha. Even I doubted you." Shin quietly listened to Minato's words. "Shin, the words I told you before, that you are Konoha's hero, were absolutely sincere. However, I still need to apologize to you for doubting you before." As Minato spoke, he slowly bowed towards Shin. Shin stood there for a moment, then slowly shook his head. "Minato-sama, you don't have to do this." Minato, who was bowing his head, couldn't help but show a look of disappointment. Just as he was about to stand up, he heard Shin's voice again. By the way, Minato-sama, there's something I'd like to ask you. Minato looked up at him. It's about my clansman, Hyuga Hisashi. Upon hearing this name, Minato froze instantly. He thought of Inoichi's cold corpse in the hospital room. Shin looked directly into Minato's eyes and slowly asked, I heard he accidentally killed Lord Inoichi. I wonder how the village plans to deal with him after the war ends. Minato stiffened, feeling a chill run through his entire body. I want to know, after the war ends, will someone be held responsible for Inoichi's death? Shikaku's questioning from back then kept flashing in his mind. Minato's heart trembled at this moment. He looked at the young man before him. The latter's expression was calm, as if waiting for his answer. Minato swallowed and said, I believe, the Hokage will have a fair resolution by then. Shin shook his head again. I'm asking you, Minato-sama. If it were you, how would you deal with Hyuga Hisashi? Silence filled the tent for a long time. The light was dim, and the three figures stood there. If Hisashi truly accidentally killed Inoichi, his crime is not punishable by death. The village can forgive his mistake. Early morning. A mist had settled on Kikyō Mountain, and the temperature was very low. Inside the main tent, a long table was set up. At the head was the third Hokage, Hiruzen Tsurutobi. To his left were Minato Namikaze, Fugaku Uchiha, Shikaku Noro, and Kushina Uzumaki, in order. To his right were Mitokado Homura, Uchiha Koharu, Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Danzo Shimura. A map of the Land of Fire covered the table. The small space was silent, everyone waiting for something. Finally, a figure suddenly blocked the light shining in from the doorway, and all eyes instantly turned towards him. The young man's face had clear and refined features, with a cool and indifferent demeanor. He was from the Hyuga clan, yet his eyes were an unusual black. He wore no forehead protector, his smooth forehead exposed casually. At that moment, everyone's expressions varied, yet a single thought simultaneously arose in their hearts. A chosen one. Uzumaki Kushina, Orochimaru, and Danzo Shimura all rushed to the front lines overnight. Originally, Orochimaru and Danzo Shimura were both imprisoned, but in the current situation, Konoha had to utilize every available force. Hiruzen Tsurutobi believed that no matter how disloyal these two might be, they wouldn't disregard Konoha's life or death. The people seated within this tent were now Konoha's strongest combatants and highest decision-makers. They were all waiting for the young man before them to provide a method to relieve the village's predicament, each with a different look in their eyes. Jun was the only one who didn't feel any ill will directed at him, besides Minato. The man, sitting there like a cold, serpentine figure, ignored the gazes of the others and directly sat down opposite Hiruzen Tsurutobi. The tent flap was pulled shut. Were any surrender proposals sent? Jun inquired first. Hiruzen Tsurutobi said gravely, yes. With that, a letter was placed on the table before Jun. This is from the Tsuchikage, Minato explained. Jun glanced at it without opening it and calmly stated, we can negotiate with them. As soon as these words were spoken, almost everyone present frowned. Hiruzen Tsurutobi's face grew cold. What did you say? They had waited all night and assembled such a formidable group, only to hear Hinata Shin's conclusion of surrender. Jun, unhurriedly, continued, we need time. Any plan or strategy requires an opportunity to be implemented. This letter can be copied into two, sent to the Cloud Ninja and Sand Ninja, and then invite them for a meeting. Uchiha Koharu frowned, a meeting? In our current state, do we have room to set conditions and negotiate with them? Shikaku mused, you want to stall for time? Jun nodded slightly, it's not a four-party meeting, but a meeting of the three of them, to discuss how to divide this cake. They only want Konoha's destruction, but they will never be willing to go to war with the other two on this land. Having such a meeting would absolutely satisfy their desires. Everyone present also understood Jun's objective. The Iwagakure shinobi, Cloud Ninja, and Sand Ninja were not yet sure when they would attack. Even if there was a plan, if the enemy attacked this afternoon or tonight, they wouldn't have the chance to implement it. A meeting could create an extremely brief period of stalemate and peace in the current situation. The outcome was not important, Konoha just needed a breathing opportunity. Even if the three parties reached an agreement, Konoha wouldn't have to pay attention to it. And then, Hiruzen Sarutobi asked again. What was the next plan? Everyone looked over again. Jin looked at Hiruzen Sarutobi, then suddenly revealed a smile. Hokage-sama, the next plan might be a bit cruel. Everyone present was startled. Hiruzen Sarutobi's gaze deepened, and he slowly stood up. Come with me then. Under the varied gazes of everyone, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Hinata Shin walked out alone. Was this meant to be told only to the third Hokage? What does this guy mean? Tsunade muttered unhappily. Orochimaru began to rest with his eyes closed. Kushina glanced at Minato, who then turned his gaze to Shikaku. Shikaku shook his head wordlessly. The group didn't wait long. Before long, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Hinata Shin returned. As soon as the Hokage sat down, he spoke. The Sand Ninja are dealt with. What about the remaining Cloud Ninja and Iwagakure Shinobi? Upon hearing this, everyone present was shocked. What had happened? How was the Sand Ninja problem resolved? What had these two said when they went out? But judging by the demeanor just now, they had clearly been deliberately avoiding them. No one present dared to ask. We need to secure an ally. Who? Kirigakure Shikaku pondered. Regarding Kirigakure, we already sent the daimyo's personal letter, but there has been no response. Jin didn't waste any more words with them and said, I'll go myself. Silence fell upon the group again. This statement implied, you all can't do it, so I'll go myself. But considering Hinata Shin's uniqueness, there seemed to be nothing to refute. Sazori of the Red Sand and the Akatsuki were all targeting him. Perhaps he could indeed persuade Kirigakure to help them. Hiruzen Sarutobi asked with a deep gaze, You'll go alone? Lord Minato, Lord Fugaku, you two go together. Uchiha Fugaku's gaze flickered slightly. Did this involve him? He harbored no good feelings towards this Hinata Shin. In the future, this person had caused him no small amount of trouble, forcing him to willingly give up his wife, and even having Mikoto bear him a child. Upon hearing that Minato was involved, Hiruzen Sarutobi felt a little more at ease. He was naturally worried that Hinata Shin intended to use this opportunity to escape Konoha's control. How long will it take? One day is enough. This one day was also the day Konoha negotiated with the Sand, Cloud, and Stone villages. Uchiha Koharu then asked again, what if you can't win them over? Where are there so many what-ifs? Shin retorted directly, this is the only way forward, or Konoha will face two enemies, the Stone Ninja and the Cloud Ninja. Uchiha Koharu was silenced. She couldn't help but question again, even if we win Kirigakure as an ally, it doesn't guarantee our victory. The future war is still full of unknowns, and besides, Kirigakure is on an island nation, crossing the sea to support us would be too. But she stopped mid-sentence, her gaze flickering uncertainly. Shikaku finished her sentence for her, Kirigakure doesn't need to cross the sea to support us. They only need to raid the borders of the Land of Lightning, and the Cloud Ninja will surely withdraw. The fourth Raikage brought 10,000 ninja, almost a full mobilization. The Land of Lightning cannot withstand Kirigakure's offensive, he then added, provided Kirigakure is willing to do so. Everyone fell into deep thought, feeling that this seemed to be the only viable option. What about the remaining Stone Ninja? Another voice chimed in. It was Tsunade, her eyes fixed on Hinata Shin. Shin glanced over, looking at the blonde woman. He remained silent, but Hiruzen Sarutobi spoke for him. Defeat them. The voice was resonant and powerful. Tsunade suddenly zoned out, looking at everyone in the tent. She suddenly realized a problem. If only the Stone Ninja remained, would there be any need for strategy? Would they fear the Stone Ninja? They could simply crush them head-on. Shin then said, there are two Jinchuriki on the Stone Ninja's battlefield, and we have experienced Jiraiya's previous crushing defeat. Our forces have suffered heavy losses, and we are still at a disadvantage in direct confrontation. Under everyone's gaze, Shin slowly said, I can make the Ninetails help us in battle. Kushina, sitting to the side, immediately felt her heart tighten. The Ninetails. It seemed to be like this in the future, with Hinata Shin controlling the Ninetails to help Konoha win the war. If it were only this, Kushina would not resist. Some turned their gaze to Kushina and Minato. In the future, Kushina would become Hinata Shin's woman and bear him a child, a fact known to everyone present. Kushina remained silent, and Minato was also silent. Hiruzen Tsurutabi stood up and said solemnly, "We will discuss this matter after you return from Kirigakure. Everyone, go and prepare." The meeting concluded. Everyone's minds were re-evaluating Hinata Shin's strategies. If they could be successfully implemented, perhaps the situation could truly be turned around, and the clouds would part to reveal the sun. However, in every link, Hinata Shin was indispensable. Except for how to deal with the Stone Ninja, both securing Kirigakure as an ally and controlling the Ninetales had to be personally done by Hinata Shin. The people present began to leave. As Shin stood up, he seemed to sense something and glanced towards Orochimaru. He saw a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Shin responded with the same smile. And then Hiruzen Tsurutabi, following Shin's strategy, sent letters to the Iwagakure shinobi, Sand Ninja, and Cloud Ninja, inviting them to a meeting. In the letters, Hiruzen Tsurutabi lowered his stance, proactively mentioning how to deal with Hyuga Shin. On the other side, Minato, after a conversation with the third Hokage and bidding farewell to Kushina, finally arrived at the camp's exit. Shin and Fugaku Uchiha were already waiting there. Besides the two of them, there was also a male ninja from the Hyuga clan, his Byakugan too conspicuous. Minato pondered, "You are Mr. Hyuga Takao." Every jonin in the village had a name. Although they weren't close, he recognized him. "It is I, Lord Minato." Hyuga Takao nodded slightly. Shin then said, "Takao will accompany us. He will protect me on the way." Minato pondered for a moment, considering Shin's current status within the Hyuga clan, and understood. He felt there was nothing wrong with this, as going to Kirigakure carried risks, and having an extra jonin by his side provided more security. He then looked at Fugaku and said, "Without further ado, let's depart." "All right." The four of them immediately rushed out of the camp at high speed. Because Shin was a chunin and his physical condition was not good, Hyuga Takao carried him on his back. The group sped towards the east at the fastest possible speed, disappearing from sight in the blink of an eye. Along the way, Minato couldn't help but lean closer to Hyuga Takao and Shin. "Shin, what is the method you propose to Lord Hokage for dealing with the Sand Ninja?" Fugaku, who was beside them, also turned his attention to them. "Didn't Lord Hokage tell you?" Shin retorted. "It seems Lord Hokage doesn't want you to know for now," Shin chuckled. "However, you will know once we return from Kirigakure Mount Cabana Leaf Camp." Only 4 elders remained in the main tent. Hiruzen Tsurutabi, Mitakado Homura, Uchiha Koharu, and Danzo Shimura. Mitakado Homura asked the same question as Minato, "What exactly is the method proposed by Hyuga Shin to deal with the Sand Ninja?" Danzo Shimura sat on the other side, meditating with his eyes closed, remaining silent. He was summoned to the front lines simply to kill enemies on the battlefield. That day, after those memories of the future appeared out of nowhere, before he could react, Hiruzen Tsurutabi had already imprisoned him. When it came to the bottom line of harming the village, his old friend, who seemed to have lost his ferocity, appeared more decisive than anyone else. Even Orochimaru was like that. Without any negotiation, not even a question, he was locked up. "You don't need to inquire about this matter," Hiruzen Tsurutabi said. "Action has already begun. You only need to know that this strategy is feasible." Mitakado Homura and Uchiha Koharu exchanged glances, their curiosity growing. What kind of strategy was it that even they had to be kept in the dark about? Was Hyuga Shin's plan that miraculous? At this moment, Shikaku's voice sounded from outside the tent. "Lord Hokage, everything is ready." Hiruzen Tsurutabi responded calmly. He could already foresee the attitude and treatment he would receive in the talks with the Iwagakure, Sand, and Cloud villages. The Tsuchikage, Kazekage, and Reikage would high-handedly decide Konoha's future. Thinking of this, Hiruzen Tsurutabi's expression grew colder. Just as he was about to get up, Danzo Shimura suddenly spoke. "Hiruzen, after the war ends, how do you plan to deal with Hyuga Shin?" Hiruzen Tsurutabi's steps merely paused, but he ignored him and walked out directly. Danzo Shimura slowly opened his remaining eye, also revealing a cold smile. Under the full-speed assault, Shin and Minato, along with the other two, reached the border of the Land of Fire in just over an hour. Before them lay the boundless sea. Fugaku was already panting slightly. Minato then suggested, "Let's rest for a while. We need to be in good condition for what's next." The Land of Water is an island nation, facing the mainland across the sea. Traveling by ship is too slow, so they chose to cross the sea directly. Fugaku glanced at Hyuga Shin, only to see that the man's expression was completely unchanged, and he couldn't help but be secretly shocked. The journey of 1 hour was not particularly tiring, but everyone in the ninja world knew how fast Minato was. Fugaku had to exert considerable effort to keep up. This jonin of the Hyuga clan seemed unfathomable, and it was no wonder Hinata Shin brought him along. Moreover, this guy had never appeared in his future memories. After eating a soldier's pill and drinking some water, the group rested on the spot, recovering their chakra. "Shin, how confident are you that you can persuade the Mizukage to help us?" Minato couldn't help but ask again. "We'll know when we meet him." Minato frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Lord Minato, Konoha is also my home." Shin was not tired. Hyuga Shin had carried him all the way. He stood on the beach, gazing at the sea in the distance. Once doubt appeared, it was too difficult to eliminate. Shin did not force it, nor did he need to. Half an hour later, Fugaku stood up. Minato stood up and also looked in the direction of the sea. "Let's go." Towards the Land of Water, Shin once again got on Hyuga Shin's back, and the group rushed towards the boundless sea. They had prepared maps and compasses beforehand to avoid getting lost at sea. The Land of Water was far from the Land of Fire, almost spanning the entire distance of the Land of Fire, and traveling by sea consumed even more chakra. They found an island to rest midway, and after 3 hours, they finally saw land again. It was fortunate that they were all people of extraordinary strength. For ordinary ninjas, crossing the sea would have been impossible. They encountered patrolling ninjas at the border and were surrounded by more than 10 people. Minato calmly revealed his identity. "I am Konoha ninja Minato Namikaze, and I wish to see your 4th Mizukage." Minato Namikaze? Konoha's yellow flash. Everyone present was greatly shocked. Then they saw Hinata Shin beside Minato and realized that his face perfectly matched the person in their memories. "That's Hinata Shin. Hurry and report to Lord Mizukage." The 4 from Konoha had no choice but to wait here and take the opportunity to rest. Minato prayed silently, hoping that things would go smoothly back at the village. In less than an hour, the message from the 4th Mizukage returned, asking the 4 from Konoha to go to the Hidden Mist village. Under the escort of the Hidden Mist ninjas, Minato and the others arrived in front of the Hidden Mist village. The Hidden Mist ninja leading them said, "Please follow me this way." Shin interrupted him. "We are guests, why can't we enter through the main gate?" The Hidden Mist ninja was clearly stunned. Minato also realized something and immediately said, "Is this the hospitality of the Hidden Mist? Lord Mizukage is waiting for you. We can go directly." Shin then took out Konoha's forehead protector from his ninja pouch at his waist and slowly tied it to his forehead. "Then please trouble you to inform Lord Mizukage once more. Can we enter through the main gate?" Several Hidden Mist ninjas whispered amongst themselves for a while, and one of them disappeared with a shun. Shin, however, said at this moment, "Lord Minato, let's go." Saying that, he was about to step towards the village ahead. The Hidden Mist ninja beside him was greatly alarmed and quickly tried to stop him, but his body instantly froze in place. He widened his eyes in terror, and in his sight, he saw a sea of blood red and 3 black tomo. He stood stiffly and said with difficulty, "Are you here to be enemies?" Shin looked at him and sneered, "What, you don't know who I am, who he was?" The Hidden Mist ninja swallowed hard. Of course, he knew. Hinata Shin, the one who swept away the 5 great nations and unified the ninja world, established the Sun Empire, and was the world's only emperor. In this Hidden Mist ninja's memory, he had personally witnessed Hinata Shin sending a supergiant mecha in the future, forcing the 4th Mizukage to submit. The Land of Water was also designated as the Water Province. The 4 from Konoha walked into the Hidden Mist village so openly. All the hidden mist ninjas present were controlled by Fugaku's genjutsu, and none could move to stop them. On the streets of the hidden mist village, the appearance of the four from Konoha immediately alerted the villagers. They had only heard of the name Yellow Flash but had never seen him. But Hinata Shin's appearance was something everyone was very clear about. Countless Kirigakure shinobi leaped across the rooftops, all their gazes fixed upon these few individuals. Finally, 2 Kirigakure shinobi blocked their path. Guests from Konoha, the Mizukage requests your presence. Lead the way, Shin said calmly, already appearing as the leader of the Konoha group. Minato and Fugaku said nothing upon seeing this. They had come together to act as bodyguards, and it was up to Hinata Shin to persuade the Mizukage. The Mizukage's tower. They successfully met the 4th Mizukage, Yagura Karatachi. He was an extremely young-looking boy, and there were many rumors about him in the ninja world. Minato and the others knew his true age was not as it appeared. Hinata Takao then leaned down and whispered into Shin's ear. There's a fluctuation of dojutsu. Shin's eyes narrowed slightly. Uchiha Madara, not dead yet. Lord Minato, 90%, Shin suddenly said in a low voice. Minato paused for a moment, then immediately realized Shin was referring to the matter of his confidence he had asked about earlier. 90%. Was there still a 10% uncertain factor? Yagura Karatachi's gaze was also intently fixed on Hinata Shin at this moment. And then, another Kirigakure shinobi approached Yagura and reported. Lord Mizukage, Genjetsu-sama, and the heads of the various clans have arrived. Upon hearing this, Shin let out a slight smile. Lord Minato, 100%. In Kirigakure, Kekkei Genkai clans were numerous and held extremely high status, surpassing even that of the Uchiha and Hyuga in Konoha. Their representative figure was Genjetsu, who in the original Naruto storyline, was the one who supported Mai Terumi to become the 5th Mizukage. This old man appeared to be advanced in age, leaning on a cane, his eyes half open and half closed, often giving the illusion that he was asleep. They all knew very well why Konoha had come here. It was nothing more than to seek aid. However, they were still extremely curious about this person, Hyuga Shin, and had come specifically to witness him with their own eyes. Yagura Karatachi slowly spoke. What is the purpose of you Konoha ninjas coming to our Kirigakure now? Shin, however, replied irrelevantly, I didn't expect the Mizukage to be a dojutsu master as well. Upon hearing this, Yagura Karatachi's gaze deepened, and the way he looked at Shin immediately changed. The others present, however, were all bewildered. When did their Mizukage ever cultivate dojutsu? Hyuga Shin, what do you mean by that? Someone couldn't help but ask. Shin chuckled and said, I see a strong dojutsu power emanating from the Mizukage. Isn't that the mark of a dojutsu master? Minato Namikaze and Fugaku were both startled by this. Fugaku even directly activated his Sharingan and stared intently at Yagura Karatachi. In the next instant, his expression changed drastically. He could actually feel the power of the Sharingan from the other party. The Kirigakure crowd was greatly shaken by this. They were all ninjas, and even if they didn't practice dojutsu, they understood it. What did it mean for someone to have dojutsu power without practicing dojutsu? This dojutsu power had been imposed upon him by someone else. Someone immediately shouted, Hyuga Shin, what nonsense are you spouting? Shin ignored him, smiling faintly as he looked at Yagura Karatachi. Mizukage-sama, am I wrong? Yagura Karatachi's expression was blank. He suddenly raised his hand, and with a swish, several Anbu members instantly appeared in the office, surrounding Shin and his companions. Fugaku and Minato became extremely vigilant. Minato even held his breath. Before entering Kirigakure, he had left a flying thunder god mark outside. As long as the situation turned unfavorable, he could transfer everyone away. Wait, just as the atmosphere became tense, a voice broke the stalemate. The old man who appeared to be drowsy now opened his clear eyes and stared at Hyuga Shin, saying, Please explain what you meant by your words just now. Shin chuckled and said, Why don't you ask your Mizukage? Fugaku, standing beside them, tore away the pretense and stated directly, Your Mizukage has been control. Everyone present had a drastic change in expression. Someone angrily said, How dare you slander and insult the Mizukage? Mizukage-sama, arrest them. Konoha ninjas are going too far. Shin remained standing calmly, speaking unhurriedly. Just summon a ninja skilled in sealing jutsu, and the truth or falsehood will be known with a single proof. Seeing his certainty, those present couldn't help but waver. After all, their Mizukage had been acting rather strange for a long time recently. Yagura Karatachi, however, sneered, self-proof? You are merely an outsider. Do you think you are worthy of making me prove myself? He immediately shouted at the Anbu, arrest them. Bang, before the Anbu could make a move, they were interrupted by a sudden sound, the sound of a cane hitting the floor. Wait, Genjutsu also shouted sternly. Others couldn't help but say, Lord Genjutsu, you cannot believe the words of Konoha ninjas. For Kirigakure, such a matter also concerned their reputation. The most appropriate course of action would naturally be to deny everything publicly and then privately verify whether the Mizukage was indeed being controlled. Genjutsu glanced at Yagura Karatachi and saw that the fourth Mizukage's expression had become extremely cold. His heart tightened, and he then said, Mizukage-sama, these Konoha people are disrespectful to you. We can simply drive them away, there's no need to detain them. Hyuga Shin, this legendary figure who was being watched by the entire world. Even if they couldn't offer help, they shouldn't make an enemy of him. Yagura Karatachi, however, coldly ordered, kill them. The other Kirigakure ninjas were all shocked. The Anbu members exchanged glances, and after a brief hesitation, they ultimately chose to obey their Mizukage's command. Several dark figures swarmed towards the Konoha group. The Mizukage's personal Anbu were naturally not weak, but they were facing the absolute elite of the ninja world. In just one exchange, the people present didn't even see the Konoha ninjas' movements. With several muffled thuds, all the Anbu fell to the ground. Kill them, Yagura Karatachi roared again, ordering the heads of the various clans from Kirigakure present. As soon as the words fell, a black shadow flashed before his eyes, and a cold sensation touched his neck. Don't move. Yagura Karatachi, however, was fearless. Completely unconcerned about the kunai pressed against his neck, he directly turned and struck backward with his palm. This startled Minato. He couldn't possibly kill the Mizukage, that would lead to an irreconcilable situation. He quickly retracted his kunai and retreated. The Kirigakure ninja present wanted to step forward to help, but they found their Mizukage showing no demeanor of a strong leader. They all froze on the spot. As a Koge, the most crucial requirement was that one's strength must surpass that of others. And the Yagura Karatachi before them, when attacking Minato Namikaze, displayed a level of skill that didn't even qualify as a jonin. Finally, after a series of probes, Minato subdued Yagura Karatachi and pinned him to the ground. Lord Fugaku Shin spoke at this moment. Fugaku stepped forward upon hearing the voice, approaching Yagura Karatachi. His eyes turned scarlet, and 3 tomo patterns appeared. Lord Genjutsu stood there, silent, watching the Konoha people treat their Koge this way. His gaze frequently shifted to Hinata Shin beside him. After Fugaku let out a long sigh, Yagura Karatachi, pinned to the ground by Minato, also lost consciousness. Young Master Shin, Genjutsu suddenly spoke again, using a respectful tone. Shin glanced sideways. Lord Genjutsu, what advice do you have? May I speak with you privately? Under everyone's gaze, an old man and a young man walked out of the room. Hyuga Takao still followed closely by Shin's side. The 3 entered another lounge and closed the door. The Mizukage's strangeness, I had a vague feeling about it, but I was never sure, Genjutsu said slowly, leaning on his cane with both hands. Your actions today completely disregard our Kirigakure's dignity, Shin said calmly. Oh? Then Lord Genjutsu is so patient. Compared to some matters, this is nothing. Genjutsu shook his head lightly, then sighed. You must be in a great hurry, to act so recklessly. However, our Kirigakure is willing to send troops to assist. Young Master Shin. I wonder if I will still address you this way the next time we meet. The moment Genjutsu saw Hinata Shin, he had already made his choice internally. However, considering Konoha's current predicament, he was worried that Hinata Shin might not survive this ordeal. But after careful consideration, he chose to bet on Hinata Shin. Compared to the ultimate gains, the risks Kirigakure had to bear were too small. Young Master Shin, if the current Konoha cannot accommodate you, you can consider coming to our Kirigakure. That won't trouble Lord Genjutsu and... Shin emerged from the room and saw many people standing at the entrance of the former Mizukage's office. Minato immediately stepped forward. How did it go? Kirigakure has agreed to send troops. Upon hearing this, Minato's heart immediately relaxed. Then, he couldn't help but ask, so quickly? They haven't verified that the fourth Mizukage was controlled yet, have they? What did you talk about? Shin looked up at him, a half-smile on his face. He told me that if Konoha cannot accommodate me, I can consider coming to Kirigakure. Minato chuckled awkwardly. Shin, don't joke around. Shin's smile faded. We can go back now. Genjutsu also walked out at this moment and approached them. He said to Shin and Minato, we will mobilize our troops as soon as possible, but the land of water and the land of lightning are separated by the sea, and it will take time. Minato took a deep breath and immediately bowed respectfully to Genjutsu, saying with utmost sincerity, thank you very much. Genjutsu merely nodded slightly, then added, and thank you for helping us remove the Genjutsu from our Mizukage. The four from Konoha no longer lingered and immediately departed from Kirigakure village, heading back towards the land of fire. On the way back, Minato kept pondering how Shin had managed to persuade Genjutsu. Originally, upon learning that the fourth Mizukage was under Genjutsu, he had guessed Shin's plan. In the past, helping Kirigakure remove the Genjutsu from the Mizukage would have been enough to earn their friendship. But the reality seemed to be not entirely so. Minato's mind raced, and Shin's words, if Konoha cannot accommodate him, he can go to Kirigakure, kept echoing in his heart. Had Kirigakure truly extended an olive branch to Shin? The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. What had Shin done in the future? Currently, the third Hokage could not tolerate him, but that didn't mean everyone in the world couldn't. Wasn't the Hyuga clan a prime example? Some people believed that by following Hyuga Shin, they would undoubtedly receive generous rewards in the future. After all, he was the emperor of the only empire on this continent in the future. Minato's heart couldn't help but become a little melancholic. His original intention was to keep Shin by his side and guide him well, preventing him from becoming as cruel in his methods as he was in the future. But now, it seemed that this Hyuga Shin was still not someone he could suppress. He was merely a chunin, yet there were countless people stronger than him in the village and in the world. Minato, a soft call suddenly startled Minato from his deep thoughts. It was Fugaku, who had come to Minato's side. What are you thinking about? Fugaku asked. Nothing. Minato, I think we are thinking about the same thing, Fugaku said calmly. Minato's expression froze. He looked into Fugaku's deep eyes, and his heart trembled. Fugaku, you are overthinking it. Fugaku remained silent. Was he overthinking it? Did that mean Minato had already guessed the meaning behind his words, heartland of the land of fire? A four-party meeting between Konoha, Sunagakure, Kumogakure, and Iwagakure was successfully convened. The four Kage were now gathered here, each accompanied by only one guard, and no ninja from any side was allowed within a radius of tens of kilometers. This was a plain, with nothing to obstruct the view as far as the eye could see. The four Kage sat before a large round table created by Earth-style jutsu. Although it was a meeting of the four Kage, only 3 of them participated in the discussion. Hiruzen Tsurutobi clasped his hands in front of him, his expression calm, silently listening to the 3 of them arguing incessantly. The fourth Kazekage, Rosa, the third Tsuchikage, Onoki, and the fourth Reikage, A, were arguing about the disposition of Konoha after its defeat, and the division of the land of fire's borders in the future. Hiruzen Tsurutobi sneered inwardly. These 3 were no longer hiding their intentions to covet the borders. As the sun set in the west, Hiruzen Tsurutobi glanced at the dim red sky and narrowed his eyes. Onoki noticed his movement and immediately spoke. Hokage, Rosa and the Reikage also quieted down upon hearing this. Onoki's face showed a hint of mockery as he asked, Hokage, do you have any good suggestions? On this day, his heart was filled with immense joy. Ever since the first Hokage and Madara Uchiha, he had never had any good feelings towards Konoha village. And now, Konoha has finally knelt at his feet. Before Hiruzen Sarutobi could speak, a sharp cry suddenly sounded from high above. Everyone looked up and saw an eagle circling overhead. The guard beside Rosa immediately said, "It's our eagle." He whistled with a flick of his finger, and the eagle swooped down, landing on his shoulder. The guard took the note from it and his expression immediately became very interesting. The Tsuchigage's guard quickly handed the note to Rosa. Rosa glanced at it, his expression initially one of astonishment, then it turned grim. "Tsuchikage, what's wrong?" the Raikage beside him asked, seeing this. Rosa remained silent, his face a mixture of green and red. He looked at Hiruzen Sarutobi, disbelief flashing in his eyes. Onoki also frowned, "Tsuchikage," and at this moment, another sharp cry sounded, and they looked up at the sky again. Shikaku said, "It's our eagle." When the messenger eagle landed on his shoulder, Shikaku directly took the note and handed it to Hiruzen Sarutobi. After Hiruzen Sarutobi read it, his face changed drastically. With a bang, he punched the stone table. The stone tabletop was actually cracked by his punch. Everyone heard his extremely angry voice. "Tsuchikage, how dare you send someone to kill our country's daimyo? What?" As soon as the words fell, everyone present widened their eyes. Even Shikaku, behind Hiruzen Sarutobi, after being stunned for a moment, also showed a look of horror. "Killed, the daimyo?" Rosa's expression was ugly. "Hokage, do not slander me. What evidence do you have that it was us?" Hiruzen Sarutobi's face turned red, furious. "Who in the ninja world doesn't know that puppeteers are unique to your Sunagakure? Someone in the Land of Fire's royal city personally witnessed a puppeteer break into the daimyo's mansion. What else do you have to argue?" Shikaku stared blankly at his Hokage venting his anger, unsure if the Hokage's anger was truly because the daimyo was killed, or because of the arrogant judgment of these three just now. Rosa was speechless. The Hokage's words were not false at all. Puppeteers were unique to their Sunagakure. Although outsiders had imitated them, they were all inferior techniques. The Land of Fire's daimyo had the 12 guardian ninja by his side. Besides the puppeteers of their Sunagakure, he truly didn't believe anyone else could achieve this. But even so, he didn't believe their own ninjas would attack the Land of Fire's daimyo. He stared intently at Hiruzen Sarutobi, his hand tightly clenching the note. The content of this note was that the Land of Wind's daimyo had ordered him to withdraw his troops immediately. Ninjas killing a daimyo, if a small country's daimyo was assassinated, it would be one thing, but that was the dignified daimyo of the Land of Fire. Who would have the guts? If this news spread, wouldn't the daimyos of the other 4 great countries be in a state of panic? Even the Land of Wind's daimyo would no longer trust them. Rosa felt a chill run through his body at this moment. The puppeteer had acted, leaving him no room to argue or prove his innocence. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked up at him, his voice icy. "Tsuchikage, Konoha will be in an endless battle with Sunagakure. I'll see you on the battlefield." With that, he turned around and was about to leave. Onoki saw this and coldly shouted, "Hokage, where are you going?" In his opinion, this was Konoha's surrender ceremony. Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced back and sneered, "Don't you want war? Come at me all at once. Let's see who can walk out of this land alive." This sentence sent a chill down Onoki's spine. This Hokage had no intention of surrendering at all. Shikaku, Hiruzen Sarutobi had only taken 2 steps when he saw Shikaku still frozen in place and called out with a frown. Shikaku suddenly snapped back to reality and quickly followed. His mind was constantly replaying what Hinata Shin had said earlier in the main tent of the camp. "Hokage-sama, the next strategy might be a bit cruel." Kikyō Mountain. Late at night, Shin and Minato and a few others successfully returned. Seeing the camp safe and sound, Minato couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. His greatest worry was that they would be attacked by the enemy during his absence. Hiruzen Sarutobi and the others had also been waiting for their return all night. "The Mist Village has agreed to send troops." Minato directly delivered the answer everyone was expecting. Mitokado Homura let out a long sigh and murmured softly, "With this, Konoha's situation will be much better." Everything is proceeding according to plan. Minato then asked, has the Sand Village situation been resolved as well? Our reconnaissance team discovered today that the Sand Village has withdrawn their troops, Shikaku replied, but his gaze couldn't help but drift towards Shin as he spoke. The others were all indifferent, their expressions heavy, as if something bad had happened. Minato, seeing Shikaku's expression, couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? Hiruzen Tsurutabi said calmly, the Sand Village sent someone to assassinate our country's daimyo. I have already dispatched a unit to pursue them. With such deep hatred, Konoha and Sunagakure will be in a fight to the death. Minato and Fugaku froze in place simultaneously. Shikaku added, countless people in the Land of Fire's royal capital witnessed a puppeteer breaking into the daimyo's mansion and going on a killing spree. All 12 ninja protecting the daimyo have also sacrificed themselves. A puppeteer? Minato's mind immediately recalled the red-haired boy who had come to find Hinata Shin not long ago, his pupils widening slightly. A cruel strategy, so that's how it is. With the daimyo of the Land of Fire murdered by a puppeteer, the daimyo of the Land of Wind would surely become suspicious of the Sand Village. Minato slowly raised his head to look at the third Hokage. Seeing his expressionless face, his heart grew even colder. Hiruzen Tsurutabi spoke again, you have all worked hard on your journey. Go back and rest first. The Iwagakure shinobi and Cloud Ninja could attack at any moment. You need to conserve your strength and be ready for battle. After everyone left with their own thoughts, Minato remained in place. Hokage-sama, is this the strategy Shin proposed? Konoha has reached a point of life and death, Hiruzen Tsurutabi said calmly. Minato, do you know what the consequences will be if we lose? Do you know the fate of a nation destroyed and a people annihilated? These few words left Minato speechless and stunned. Ever since those memories of the future appeared, certain things had been constantly swirling in his mind. Why would his future self walk a path opposed to the village? Would he really do things that would harm the village? He was determined to guide Shin onto the path of light, but at this moment, he suddenly realized that it was he himself who could not see the path ahead clearly. Minato, both you and I underestimated him, Hiruzen Tsurutabi said again. A person's strength is not solely reflected in their own power. In the future, he will surely achieve great things, and more people will follow him. After this war ends, there will be many discordant voices in the village, which will not be beneficial to you. He was speaking conservatively. When Hinata Shin appeared in the eyes of the world, perhaps this world would be thrown into chaos because of him. Hiruzen Tsurutabi gazed deeply at Minato, you must make a decision. The two stood on the mountainside, the surroundings quiet and deserted. Minato gazed into the night and said, Hokage-sama, haven't I already made my decision long ago? When they had imprisoned Hinata Shin before, the third Hokage had said something similar, and he had given his answer then. Hiruzen Tsurutabi said sternly, Minato, I know you want to treat every comrade in the village equally, but you have witnessed his cruelty and ruthlessness. The ethics and rules of this world cannot restrain him. Can you still believe that you can change the mind of such a person? But he hasn't done anything to harm the village so far. Instead, he has helped the village overcome difficulties. Hiruzen Tsurutabi's gaze deepened, and he questioned, Minato, do you really want him to take the position? Minato was momentarily lost in thought. He wanted to say, if Shin is more capable than me, it's not impossible for Shin to become Hokage, but seeing Hiruzen Tsurutabi's gaze, and remembering Shikaku and Kushina, he swallowed the words back. By now, whether he became Hokage or not was no longer just his personal matter. To say such a thing would undoubtedly hurt others' feelings. Hiruzen Tsurutabi's voice was cold, Minato, he is an anomaly. As long as he is gone, Konoha will still be Konoha, a Konoha that you can govern and protect with all your heart. But now, you just need to know one thing. In the struggle for power, it is either me or the enemy. Power. Because of power, various compromises and concessions must be made, and one must even adorn oneself with the name of the village. Even Hiruzen Tsurutabi, as the Hokage, agreed to Hinata Shin's cruel plan. But what is the duty of a ninja? Perhaps he, the third Hokage, had long forgotten. But Minato felt that at least he shouldn't be like this. Was he going to walk the path of the future? If a person loses their inner conviction and sinks into the nightmare of power, wouldn't they become an empty shell? Minato looked at Hiruzen Tsurutabi. He suddenly felt that the Hokage had become strange and terrifying. This Hokage might have believed he was right all along, still convinced he was practicing the will of fire. He took a deep breath and said, "Hokage-sama, please trust me." Hiruzen Tsurutabi silently withdrew his gaze from him. Minato was still a perfect person, like a sun, warming those around him. "I understand, Minato, I have always believed in you," the third Hokage said slowly. Minato immediately bowed deeply to Hiruzen Tsurutabi. "Thank you. You should go back and rest." Hiruzen Tsurutabi nodded. "By the way, I hope you can have a good talk with Kushina as well." Minato's expression faltered, and he lowered his head. "I understand." Hiruzen Tsurutabi watched Minato's retreating back. Standing still, the mountain wind picked up again, blowing away some of the mist. But under the gloomy night, it was still hazy. Someone always has to be a shadow, to drive away and sweep clean the filth of the netherworld. Previously, Hiruzen Tsurutabi also had such a shadow, but perhaps because that shadow accumulated too much unspeakable, it degenerated into true darkness. He had to abandon it, causing him to personally do many things now. This dark and decaying place indeed easily confuses the mind, making one gradually lose sight of oneself. But it no longer matters. Since so much has already been done, it might as well be done thoroughly. When Minato becomes Hokage, he will still be admired and revered by thousands. He will stand on top of the Hokage building bathed in brilliant light and take his oath, and the will of fire will continue to be passed down. Just like himself in the past. And also, he was indeed startled awake by a clamor. Stepping out of the tent, he saw many ninja rushing about the camp. The sky was dimly lit, and a layer of mist shrouded the mountain. Hyuga Takao instantly appeared beside him. "The Cloud Ninja have made a move. A large number of ninja are approaching Kikyō Mountain." Jin asked, "What about the Iwagakure shinobi?" Hyuga Takao replied, "Everything is as usual. The Tsuchikage is likely waiting to reap the benefits." Kakashi also arrived swiftly at this moment and said to Jin, "The Hokage wishes to see you." Looking at the camp that was quickly entering a state of alert, Jin pondered for a moment before heading towards the main tent with Kakashi. As Jin lifted the flap and entered, Hiruzen Tsurutabi was deploying defensive lines with a group of people. Minato was not present, likely already at the front lines. Seeing Jin enter, Hiruzen Tsurutabi quickly issued his final orders, saying, "Act according to the orders. Disperse." The captains of these various units then bustled out of the main tent to their respective posts. Although the Cloud Ninja had superior numbers, they were the defenders and held the advantage of terrain. It was not impossible to withstand the Cloud Ninja's assault. The premise was that the Iwagakure shinobi would not interfere. But upon careful consideration, with Onoki's personality, how could he not take advantage of the situation? Only someone like the Lightning Shadow would launch such a full-scale, almost no-holds-barred attack on Kikyō Mountain. Inside the main tent, Shikaku had also left to relay more detailed orders and deployments to the various squads. "Do you think we can withstand the Cloud Ninja's attack?" Hiruzen Tsurutabi asked directly. It would take time for Kirigakure to mobilize. To launch a cross-sea assault on the Land of Lightning, even the vanguard would require at least 2 days. This battle was also their most difficult. As long as they could withstand the Cloud Ninja's assault, the Cloud Ninja, upon receiving news of Kirigakure's attack, would surely retreat due to being unable to attend to both fronts. "How many Cloud Ninja troops are there?" Jin inquired. Hiruzen Tsurutabi pondered for a moment. 10,000. A conservative estimate, this was the intelligence gathered from numerous reconnaissance squads. However, the information Jin received from Hyuga Takao indicated that the Cloud Ninja had brought a total of approximately 12,000 ninja this time, along with 2-tailed beasts. "And the Iwagakure shinobi?" Jin asked again. Hiruzen Tsurutabi was speechless, his eyes fixed on the map on the table. After a moment, he said, "The Iwagakure shinobi are only a little over 8,000, but Konoha now had less than 8,000. If it were only the Iwagakure shinobi, or only the Cloud Ninja, Hiruzen Tsurutabe would have been confident in winning the war. After deep thought, Hiruzen Tsurutabe asked again, "Do you really have a way to control the Ninetales?" "We'll only know if we try." Kushina could not control the Ninetales' power. If Kushina were to release the Ninetales on the battlefield, the first to suffer would undoubtedly be the Konoha ninja who were deeply hated by the Ninetale. What method? Hiruzen Tsurutabe's gaze was fixed on the black-haired, black-eyed youth before him. He desperately wanted to know how this Chunin, who was only 13 years old, knew so much. Jin did not evade, directly stating, "Just have a chat with the Ninetales, perhaps it will willingly help Konoha." These words made Hiruzen Tsurutabe even more suspicious and uncertain. This seemed somewhat different from the future. However, that future was no longer the future. He said solemnly, "Before the Iwagakure shinobi appear on the battlefield, you must ensure the Ninetales also appears on the battlefield." Jin chuckled, "Hokage-sama, what else do you need me to guarantee? If I fail, we will all die together. Are you going to punish me before we die?" Hiruzen Tsurutabe's expression turned cold, then he suppressed it. "Kushina is waiting for you." As Jin walked out of the main tent, Kakashi was waiting for him outside. "Let's go." With Kakashi leading the way, he guided Jin outside the camp. Midway, Hyuga Takao suddenly appeared and followed. Kakashi merely glanced, saying nothing. The three of them crossed a mountain ridge and arrived in a desolate valley. A beautiful figure was standing there, her long red hair particularly striking. Kakashi stopped when he saw Kushina. Hyuga Takao's figure also vanished into the woods. Jin walked towards her alone. He then realized that the surrounding area had been inscribed with sealing jutsu, presumably to guard against any unforeseen accidents. The woods and wilderness surrounding this valley must also be hiding quite a few people. Seeing Hyuga Shin arrive, Kushina's calm gaze rippled slightly. This person. She subconsciously bit her lower lip. In recent times, the memories of the future had become a nightmare, a demon in her mind. Losing her virginity to him, bearing his child, and even deceiving and hurting Minato with him. In the end, she had become numb and compromised with her situation because of the child. She often dreamed of that child named Naruto, running towards her crying and calling her mom. She dreamed of Minato questioning her with a face full of hatred. She would finally wake up from the nightmare, filled with terror. Her future absolutely could not be like this, and she absolutely could not conceive this seed of evil. She confided in Minato, and from him, she received a promise. Minato promised that everything would not be like the future, that Hyuga Shin was merely a misguided individual, and that he would guide him properly. But why now was it like the future memory, where Hyuga Shin was to control the Ninetales within her body? Minato. As Shin walked closer, Kushina composed herself and slowly asked, "What do you plan to do?" "Meet it first," Shin said concisely. Kushina hesitated. "You want to see the Ninetales?" After a brief silence, Kushina said, "I will teach you the Uzumaki clan's sealing jutsu, the Four Symbols seal. You can transmit chakra through the seal on my body to see it." The Four Symbols seal was the jutsu inscribed on Kushina to seal the Ninetales. Unlike the improved dual Four Symbols seal on Naruto in the original Hokage, the former only had the ability to restrain the tailed beast, while the latter could also restore the leaked chakra from the Four Symbols seal back into the user's own chakra. Shin did not need to be proficient in this jutsu for now, he only needed to understand the principle. After Kushina explained in detail, he formed hand seals in front of him, covered his right hand with chakra, and then placed it against Kushina's abdomen. Seeing this, Kushina's breath tightened subconsciously, but she did not resist. She simply tilted her head back and looked away. The moment she saw Hyuga Shin with her own eyes, she felt the future was even more absurd. This Hyuga Shin was only in his teens, and his height only reached her eyebrows. The next moment, she felt a strange chakra invade her body from her abdomen. When she came to her senses, she found herself within the space that sealed the Ninetales. The surroundings were bathed in a golden mist. A giant rock floated in the air, and a massive orange fox was pinned to it, bound by chains and unable to move. Seeing this creature, a deep sense of dread appeared in Kushina's eyes. Even now, she did not feel the slightest bit of comfort from being the Ninetales Jinchuriki. The Ninetails noticed the visitors and looked down at the two, baring its fangs and letting out a chilling roar. Kushina's heart tightened, but she heard a calm voice beside her. Rage of the powerless. Despite being pinned to the giant rock in a rather pathetic state, the colossal nine-tailed demon fox still bared its ferocious and terrifying side to the approaching figure. Hello there, Kurama. The Ninetail's fierce and malevolent face instantly froze. As it looked at the young man, a hint of astonishment flickered in its beastly eyes. Everyone in this world had received memories of the future, but it seemed the Ninetails was not included. Was it because the Ninetails wasn't human, or perhaps not considered a living being? These tailed beasts were all parts of the Ten-Tails chakra, materialized from a vast mass of chakra. The Ninetails glanced at Kushina, then questioned Shin again. Brat, who exactly are you? I am the one who knows everything, Shin said with a slight smile. Knows everything? The Ninetails gave him a look of utter disdain. Shin continued, Kurama, I not only know your name, but I also know your past, including whose part you are, and who created you. The Ninetails' gaze grew increasingly serious. The fact that this person could say such things, coupled with the fact that he had indeed called out its name earlier, meant it no longer needed to seek further confirmation. What is your purpose? It asked in a cold tone. Kurama, the taste of losing freedom must be unpleasant, wouldn't you agree? The Ninetails stared at him indifferently. It seemed to have guessed something and scoffed. Your human lives are but 100 years, which to me is merely a nap. Do you think I would care? Shin chuckled and retorted, so you've resigned yourself to fate? To be a mere livestock? The word livestock instantly struck a nerve. The giant beast, still pinned, thrashed violently, letting out continuous roars. Kushina, standing nearby, was startled. She quickly formed hand seals and pressed them against her abdomen. The chains on the giant rock tightened abruptly, causing the Ninetails to let out a pained howl. Shin merely cast a sidelong glance at her, then spoke to the Ninetails again. If you agree to lend me your power, I will grant you freedom in the future. The Ninetails roared. You? Don't be delusional, brat. Shin's expression remained unchanged, and he asked, Kurama, how long have you lived? 1,000 years. Have you considered how much longer you have to live, and how much longer you will be enslaved and imprisoned? Upon hearing this, the Ninetails stopped roaring, but its ferocity remained undiminished. When humans look back at the past, they always feel time has flown by quickly, but when they look forward to the future, they can feel the vastness of time. It still remembered the first time it was driven by humans. Uchiha Madara. And his enemy at the time, Hashirama Senju. It was then that it first felt its own insignificance in the face of humans. But why should this brat be any different? It looked at Hinata Shin, whose chakra fluctuations were pitifully weak, and was being asked to bow down to such a person. After a moment of deathly silence, the Ninetails slowly spoke. Brat, do you think you can control me? Shin slowly shook his head. Kurama, I'm here to help you, yet you see me as your enemy. The Ninetails' gaze was icy. You should know how precious freedom is. Only when one is free can they truly do what they want, instead of being forced to do it. The Ninetails sneered. Aren't you forcing me now? If I refuse, what other means do you have? Shin sighed softly. I won't do anything. The choice is yours. Whether you want freedom or not, perhaps with freedom, you might even see Hagoromo again. The Ninetails' fierce eyes widened slightly, and it froze in place. The next moment, its eyes widened further. What did you say? Shin did not answer, merely looking at it calmly. The Ninetails had heard clearly, but found it hard to believe. Impossible, the old man of 6 paths is already dead. It clearly remembered the last words of the Sage of 6 Paths during their final meeting. The tailed beasts never intended to be enemies of humans from the beginning. It was just that for thousands of years, there had been those with impure hearts who attempted to control them. Humanity's desire for power and their fear gradually eroded the tailed beast's patience with humans. This kid, is he different from those people? It clearly knew its own name. The Ninetails gradually calmed down. It was true that it had lived for 1,000 years, but in those long years, it had become incredibly bleak since the death of the Sage of 6 Paths. It felt as if it was drowning in this endless time, and Hinata Shin's words were like a faint ray of light in the abyss. Old man of 6 paths, after a long silence, the Ninetails spoke. You want power, don't you? Shin met its gaze without yielding. After a moment, he said to Kushina beside him, remove those things. He was referring to the stone pillars and chains that bound the Ninetails. Kushina was stunned and couldn't help but say, but. As soon as she spoke, she didn't know what else to say. She had been completely bewildered by the conversation between Hinata Shin and the Ninetails. Kurama, is that the Ninetails' name? Why did he know? And he even promised to release the Ninetails in the future. Did he not know how much disaster the tailed beasts could bring? Being stared at by Shin, Kushina inexplicably felt a flutter of panic. She didn't want to confront this person, fearing she would become like the future. It should be all right. In the future, he was, after all, the strongest person in the world, Kushina convinced herself. She then remembered that Minato had also come to find her. After hesitating, she formed hand seals and rotated the seal on her abdomen. From high above, there was a series of bang 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 sounds. The stone pillars that were driven into the Ninetails began to crack, and the chains were torn apart. The giant rocks shattered, and the colossal demon fox crashed down before them. Kushina subconsciously swallowed. Her hand seals had not yet been released, guarding against any unexpected changes. But by then, it would not be so easy to restrain this monstrous beast. The Ninetails lowered its head. Its head alone was several times larger than their bodies. Kid, you actually trust me, the Ninetails sneered. Shin calmly retorted, don't you trust me as well? The Ninetails was suddenly speechless. Shin then said to Kushina, when we go to the battlefield later, hand over control of your body to Kurama. Don't resist. Kushina glanced at the Ninetails, then at Shin, feeling uneasy. The Ninetails sneered again, in the end, you still want to use me for war. Exactly, Shin admitted. As long as humans exist, war is difficult to stop. Human hearts have always been this way, unchangeable. However, for me, war is just a means, not an end. Sooner or later, I will end it all. The Ninetails wanted to mock this high-sounding statement, but it suddenly remembered why, during the ninjutsu sect era of the Sage of 6 Paths, humans could live in peace. Because no one was stronger than the Sage of 6 Paths. For this world to have peace, a second Sage of 6 Paths was needed. The Ninetails saw the deep eyes of Hinata Shin, and its heart tightened. This kid is completely different from the old man of 6 Paths. Kikyō Mountain. The entire defense line of Konoha was under the impact of Cloud Ninja. A vast sea of fire appeared in the mountains and forests, smoke filled the air, and the entire peak seemed to tremble under this battle. Various ninjutsu collided on the battlefield, shuriken and kunai flew everywhere, explosions sounded from time to time, and people were constantly dying. Fugaku Uchiha's figure was submerged in this battlefield. He looked around, the forest and the sea of fire blocked his vision, and he could only see chaos. After a long and fierce battle, most people had forgotten their original purpose and tactics. The corpses in sight made everyone's hearts turn cold and numb. Seeing someone wearing enemy clothes, they would charge forward like madmen and fight them. No one was willing to retreat. On this battlefield, there was nowhere left to retreat. The result of harboring fear was only to be killed on the spot by the enemy. The mountains were piled with corpses, and blood stained the earth. Fire style, dragon fire technique. The blazing line of fire, like a giant dragon, instantly divided the battlefield ahead. Some people had no time to escape and died in the sea of fire, but in the next instant, countless people swarmed forward again. Fortunately, Fugaku had companions by his side. Konoha ninja were skilled at fighting in the mountains and forests. Although they looked like they had suffered heavy casualties at first glance, more of the dead were Cloud Ninja. Boom! He heard a deafening roar. Through the dense foliage and black smoke, he vaguely saw a giant figure. It was someone from the Akimichi clan. They always had a great advantage in such large-scale wars. However, becoming so huge also meant becoming a living target for the enemy. Using such a secret technique also meant that they had put their lives aside. This made Fugaku's heart even more grief-stricken. His figure weaved through the enemies, his sharp blade constantly reaping lives. But the prolonged battle kept his body and mind tense, and he was already exhausted. Just as he killed a cloud ninja, he turned his head and saw a ball of blue flame flying out from the bushes. "Captain, be careful." In a moment of distraction, the flame shot straight towards him. In the next instant, Fugaku was suddenly pulled away by a force. Boom! The blue fireball exploded, directly knocking down several large trees, and a dark, deep pit appeared on the ground. Fugaku was still shaken. Uchiha clansmen were around him. Blue fire, what is that? He looked towards the direction of the bushes in the distance. The noisy sounds around him blurred at this moment. Suddenly, a giant blue cat demon rushed out of the dense forest. Its face was fierce and ferocious, and it charged directly towards Fugaku's position. Fugaku's eyes widened instantly. Was it a tailed beast? With a great shock, he quickly dodged. The demon cat landed on the ground with a boom, and the huge sound startled the nearby battlefield, stirring up countless dust and smoke. "Jinchuriki? It's a tailed beast. It's the two tails!" Exclamations erupted from the Konoha side. The pressure brought by the tailed beast was too strong, and countless people showed fear. And following Matatabi, the two tails, there were 4 middle-aged cloud ninja, seemingly escorting the Jinchuriki. Fugaku's expression was grim, his eyes fixed on the giant demon cat. He pondered in his heart how much eyesight he would lose if he wanted to deal with this big guy. Moreover, would he be its opponent? The demon cat leaped up, its front claws pressing a Konoha ninja directly to the ground. "Attack! Attack it! Attack quickly!" A barrage of ninja tools flew towards it. The cat demon opened its bloody maw and roared. The blast of air it exhaled actually knocked the flying ninja tools to the ground. The sound alone made people's ears ring. Some people tried to attack with fire-style ninjutsu, but it was already covered in flames. The fire impact on the two tails was like an itch. This also made Fugaku give up the idea of using fire-style. The cat demon opened its mouth and condensed a giant fireball, shooting directly towards the direction of the Konoha ninja. "Stop it! Stop it quickly!" The formation of Konoha ninja instantly became chaotic. With the addition of this giant demon cat, the situation on the battlefield also changed. More Konoha ninja charged forward one after another. The water flow surged, turning into a huge water wall to intercept the fireball. Water and fire collided, and steam filled the air. Some Konoha members used water style to block this fireball, but the two tails did not give them a chance to breathe, and another giant fireball was condensed in its mouth. The heat wave hit, and the high temperature caused the air to distort. The cat demon's body was emitting white steam. Dark red chakra condensed in the cat demon's mouth, solidifying into a tangible sphere, and everyone could feel the terrifying power contained within. Seeing this moment, Fugaku could only grit his teeth and charge forward. However, a giant iron rod was faster than him, flying rapidly from the distant jungle and directly knocking the cat demon's massive body to the ground. Fugaku recognized it as the third Hokage's Rui Jingu Bang. As the cat demon was knocked down, the previously accumulated tailed beast bomb also dispersed with a roar, turning into dense chakra that permeated the surrounding area. Boom! With another loud noise, Fugaku heard the roar of a beast from afar, not from this demon cat, but like a larger and more terrifying creature. A blinding beam of energy erupted, tearing a giant gash directly in the ground, and the entire mountain range was almost split apart by it. The corpses of those covered by the white light had not been left behind, only the embers of war and a few wisps of smoke remained. Everyone raised their gaze past the treetops, looking towards the sky higher than the flames. It was a bull-bodied monster with 8 tails, its flesh and blood exuding an oppressive sense of power. It moved across the battlefield, and humans were like ants before it. 8 tails. The Cloud Ninja's second-tailed beast. One person's strength was not enough to turn the tide of the battle, but a tailed beast was different. The appearance of the 8 tails directly displayed overwhelming combat power. Minato, who was originally locked in an intense battle with the Raikage brothers, found himself struggling after Killer Bee's tailed beast transformation. Seeing it begin to ravage his comrades, Minato's heart grew anxious, and he momentarily fell into a disadvantage against the Raikage's assault. Hiruzen Tsurutabe, upon seeing the Eight Tails appear, flew towards this location, his heart burning with anxiety. He kept thinking, what went wrong with Hinata Shin's side? Why hadn't he appeared yet? The impact of the Eight Tails and the Two Tails on the battlefield was immense. If they couldn't be dealt with promptly, even if the Cloud Ninja's attack was repelled, it would still result in countless casualties for Konoha. Rumble. The entire mountain was shaking. Everyone thought it was caused by the appearance of the Eight Tails, but Hiruzen Tsurutabe suddenly stopped. The Eight Tails seemed to be staring in one direction. It was behind the Konoha camp. Following its gaze, Hiruzen Tsurutabe also turned to look. On another mountaintop, a giant figure, as orange-red as flames, was charging towards them madly, its beastly roar echoing through the heaven.